every day of our life. Islam versus terrorism. That there is anything in Islam that would underwrite acts of terrorism. All I can find in the Quran and the teachings of Muhammad, peace be upon him, are acts versus terrorism. When someone says, well, you know those Muslims have been ordered to kill all the Christians and Jews wherever they find them. Wherever you find them, kill them. It says in the newspaper. And I live in Washington, D.C. area. We get the Washington Post. I pick it up. I look in there. I say, whoa, where's that in the Quran? I call him up. I say, who is the journalist that wrote this thing? Where did you get that? I'm not familiar with the verse. Oh, you know, the whole Quran's loaded with stuff like that. I said, really? Just give me one reference. They said, well, verse 191 in Surah Baqarah, the chapter called the cow. Well, it does start out exactly like they said, and kill them wherever you find them. Whoa, oh my God, oh my God. And kill them wherever you find them. I'm looking at the translation called the Noble Quran by Dr. Muhsin Khan and Dr. Muhammad Hilali, published by Dar es Salaam. That's the one I use all the time. It says it, by God, they're right. And kill them wherever you find them. Whoa. Wait a minute, hold on a second. Did you hear Christians and Jews in there? I must have missed that. Let's go back and look again. And kill them wherever you find them. That could be talking about bugs. Come to think about it, it just says and. Wait a minute, when was the last time you started a sentence with the word and? Let me check this out in Arabic. How many of you know Arabic? Anybody know Arabic? Anybody? Okay, well, there's a thing in Arabic looks like a comma. It's kind of round and has a tail on it called a waw. Okay, that's the word and in Arabic. It's a conjunction to say this and this. Doesn't necessarily mean plus, like 1 + 1, but it's an and. Let's see if it says that. Wa. Yep, there it is. There's an and right there. Wa qatilu. I just give you the first two words. That's the ones they're quoting in the newspaper. That's my point. But when was the last time you started a sentence with and? It means there's something right before that, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Well, I don't like it when people do that, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim. I don't like it when the men in Islam start out saying waqul. In chapter 24, verse 31, they begin to tell the women about lowering their gaze and wearing hijab. It says waqul, because they don't want to mention the verse before it that said, cool, say to the believing men to lower their gaze, to guard their private parts. They don't want to mention the men have a responsibility in this deal too. And the same way, when somebody misquotes this verse, starting out with wa, I want to go back to the verse before and find out what you're hiding from me. Let's see where it says Christians and Jews in here. Well, wait a minute. It doesn't say that, does it? What it says is they're asking you, Muhammad, about the new moons. Maybe I'm supposed to kill the moon. And they ask you, Muhammad, about the new moons. Say, these are the signs to mark the fixed periods of time for mankind and for the pilgrimage, the Hajj. Am I supposed to kill all the Hajjis? And it said it's not al-bir, piety, righteousness, or taqwa, that you enter the houses from the back, but al-bir is the quality of one who fears Allah. So enter houses through their proper doors and fear Allah that you will be successful. And now we go to the next verse. And fight in the way of Allah those who fight you. Okay. And transgress not limits. Truly, Allah does not like the transgressors. And kill them wherever you find them and turn them out from where they turned you out. And al-fitna is worse than killing. And don't fight them at Masjid al-Haram unless they first fight you there. But if they attack you, then kill them. Such is the payback for the disbelievers. Did you hear Christian or Jew in there somewhere? I'll read it again if somebody thought I said Christian. Did you hear that? The people that I heard referred to in English, it's talking about transgressors. Those who fight you. So it's retaliation, yes or no? It has limits, yes or no? Don't fight them. Only accept when they're fighting you and turn them out from where they turned you out. Do you remember any story about Jews and Christians turning Muslims out of somewhere? No. So this isn't what it's talking about. Not at all. But by the way, I'm going to tell you something. With 50 years experience as a Christian, I heard a lot of preachers do exactly the same thing with the Bible. Take a verse, take the part out they like, make a whole sermon out of it. Nobody ever heard that before. Sometimes they have to add a word in and take a word out, like Jews and Christians. This verse came at a time when the Muslims had already suffered for years of not being able to retaliate against oppression and transgression, called dhulam, and fitna, meaning trials and tribulations. No one had to teach these Arabs 1,400 years ago how to fight. Nobody had to tell them how to fight. Arabs know how to fight. Even today, I think they're born with a rock in their hand, okay? They know how to fight. In fact, Islam came to teach them how to stay within the confines of Islam. Islam is based really on a concept that's beautiful balance called rights and limitations. All we hear about today is rights, rights, rights. What about the limits? There's no limits to the rights. If you give one person all the rights he wants, he can take everybody else's rights away from him. So there has to be a limit, yes or no? A balance, yes or no? Okay, cool. Moving forward. This idea of rights and limitations is introduced very beautifully with this verse, these three verses actually in the Quran. It's also understood when you know the story that the Arabs had been, before Islam, very ignorant, fighting all the time. I'll tell you one story only, because there's not enough time. One story, there was a camel race. At the end of the race, the tribe that lost to the other tribes, one of the boys picks up a rock and throws it at the camel. When he did, it killed the camel. So the boy that has this camel became upset, wants to kill their camel or kill the boy. So a war starts between the two tribes, and they're going after each other. Boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. How many years did they fight the war of the camel? 40 years. Killing each other in a tribal feud over a race. You didn't have to tell Arabs how to fight. But when they entered Islam, they were forbidden to go out and aggressively pursue those who were persecuting them. They were only allowed self-defense. So I want to share with you, jihad does not mean self-defense. It's more than that. Self-defense is always there. Somebody come up and slap you, you can hold yourself off. But to retaliate back, this was held back until these verses came. For 13 years, the Muslims were very restricted in what they could do physically. They had to tolerate, endure, and learn a word called sabr, patience. The Prophet ﷺ was the epitome of patience in a human being. He was very patient. And one time, there was a lot of aggression and oppression, physical abuse against the Muslims right in front of the Kaaba in Mecca. And one of the companions went to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and complained and asked him, please, pray to your Lord, make dua that Allah will take this off of us, etc., etc. And he didn't do it. In fact, he turned to him and he said, oh, so-and-so, don't you know that all of the prophets before us, they had these experiences. And actually, the people before us had worse experiences. And he was talking about the Christians, how the Christians had to endure the same kinds of things in the first years after Jesus had left the earth. Peace be upon him. He mentioned, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentioned that they were tortured in horrible ways. They had their skin combed off of them with an iron comb. They were boiled. like you boil a potato. They were cut in half. They put a saw in their skull and cut them in half. Having studied personally the early years of Christianity, we have record of them being thrown into the lion's pit, being thrown into the amphitheater, so that the Romans could enjoy a nice afternoon out and go to the amphitheater at night. Let's go out and watch the Christians being eaten alive by the lions and bears and beaten to death by the Roman gladiators. That's what they suffered, and they had to endure it with patience. So this has to be understood in the way that it came. After they had moved to Yathrib, which is years of patience they waited, then the verse comes and orders them to do what? Combat. Yukatilu. Combat. Not slaughter, but kill in the sense of mortal combat. Go to war, willing to die or be killed or kill, because they're doing that to you. Combat those that combat you. That's the kind of kill that's being implied in the verse here with the word qital. And by the way, the word jihad is not in these ayahs. It is not. Jihad is a very wide word and carries a heavy meaning. But here, particularly, qital is talking about mortal combat. But Islam is having limits, big limits. Fight only those who are fighting you. Kill only those who are trying to kill you, but as soon as they stop, you have to stop. It is forbidden in Islam to kill the innocents. If you're going to quote to me from this book and consider that I believe it and I'm going to follow it, then please take the time to go to chapter 5, which is Surah Al-Ma'idah, and look to the verse that clearly states that if anybody takes an innocent life, it's as though they killed all of humanity. It's verse 32, by the way. And if they save a life, then it's as though they saved the entire mankind. And indeed, there came to them our messengers with clear proofs, evidences, and signs. Even then, after that, many of them continued to exceed limits in the land. And understand, Islam is about these limits, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want Muslims to be like the ignorant Arabs and just trashing people to the ground.
Living in the West, a very important topic that we're going to look into and expound upon. I have with me today Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad.
The West, home to over 45 million Muslims.
Al-Islam as the supreme law, but that is not the situation here.
In analysis, their present status, challenges,
how to interact with your neighbor, how to be involved in a political dimension,
opportunities and future.
All our actions are governed by what Allah Jalla wa Ala and His Messenger said.
Haytham Al-Haddad.
Which means that it is part of fiqh. Fiqh in brief is life. How to live is fiqh.
Join Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad as he discusses critical issues Muslims face, like dealing with non-Muslims, the importance of identity, and conforming in a multicultural society in Living in the West. Every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 1 a.m. Saudi Arabia on Peace TV.
Scientific notions in the glorious Quran are among its endless aspects that can testify for the divine nature of this noble book. These scientific notions are probably the best addressed to the people of our time. I am Zaghlul Al-Najjar. Please join me in this program to discuss some aspects of the scientific notions in the glorious Quran.
سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق.
I created the universe to
Appreciate the word-to-word authenticity of scientific notions and proven facts mentioned in the glorious Quran 1400 years ago in Scientific Notions in the Glorious Quran. Next on Peace TV.
on his creatures.
Islam is having limits, big limits. Fight only those who are fighting you. Kill only those who are trying to kill you, but as soon as they stop, you have to stop. It is forbidden in Islam to kill the innocents. If you're going to quote to me from this book and consider that I believe it and I'm going to follow it, then please take the time to go to chapter 5, which is Surah Al-Ma'idah, and look to the verse that clearly states that if anybody takes an innocent life, it's as though they killed all of humanity. It's verse 32, by the way. And if they save a life, then it's as though they saved the entire mankind. And indeed, there came to them our messengers with clear proofs, evidences, and signs. Even then, after that, many of them continued to exceed limits in the land. And understand, Islam is about these limits, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want Muslims to be like the ignorant Arabs and just trashing people to the ground. In the Bible itself, in the book called Genesis, toward the end of the book called Genesis, there is a chapter or a whole section called the rape of Dinah. It deals with the subject of a boy from a non-Jewish tribe who took a girl from the Jewish tribes. He loved her. He wanted to marry her. The tribal leaders from the Jews went to them, according to the Bible, read it for yourself, and said, "We want this girl back." The chief of the tribe said, "It's my son that took her. We didn't mean you any harm, but, let's make up like this. We will give you gifts. We will give you money. We will give you sheep. Let us keep this girl. He loves her. She loves him. Can they be together?" They said, "No. We're coming back." So they came back with their tribes. The Jewish tribes were ready to fight. But then they realized, oh my God, look at how many there are of the other people. They were huge in number. So when they realized they were outnumbered, they made another conference between them. They sat together and they said, "Listen, we got to work this out. We want the girl back." The tribal leader said, "Listen, we're willing to do this, whatever it would take to satisfy you." They said, "We can't let her be married to him because he's not Jewish, not from us." Said, "Okay, we're ready to accept your religion. We're ready to accept your religion, whatever it takes. And then, if you'll accept us, we will give you our lands and our animals, and you'll be with us just as our own brothers. You'll take our wives, we'll take wives from you, your children and our children together. We'll accept that term of peace. Could we do that?" It says in the Bible, the Jews agreed to that based on one thing: you'll have to be circumcised, khatan, same as we do today as Muslims. The men have to remove the foreflesh of the private part, and that's what it says real clear in the Bible. You do that, and then it'll be hunky-dory. We'll go for it. That's Texas translation, by the way. Next thing, it says that they cut themselves, starting with the boy. The son of the tribal leader cut himself like this. I don't know if you got any idea what I'm talking about. That's horrible, okay? That's amazing. And every member of the tribe, they made sure every member of their whole entire tribe did this to themselves. And it says in the Bible, 3 days later, when the men couldn't even move, it said they were sore. You bet they were. They couldn't move. It said that's when the Jews came in and killed them all, slaughtered them all, men, boys, and kept the women for themselves, took all of their land, all of their property, and all of their sheep. And they were very proud of themselves. They went back to their father Jacob and told him the story, and it said he was disappointed. This book, the Quran, forbids all of that. First of all, you can't lie about the religion. You have to tell people what it is. But they're always welcome to enter Islam. But the next thing is, especially when you make a truce or an agreement, you have to follow through on it in Islam. You cannot deceive people with that. And when somebody declares, Ashhadu la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, I bear witness there's none to worship except God alone, and Muhammad's his messenger, he's your brother. And the Prophet ﷺ said, his life and his property are safe from your hand. The opposite of the teaching of the Bible in that area. By the way, I don't believe everything I read in the Bible, but I definitely believe that it's right here when it tells me to have limits, not to go in and kill all the boys and men, not to go in and steal all the women and rape them, killing babies even, stealing their land after you made a promise with them. And this is what Allah is forbidding right here for the Muslims, for the Arabs, and all Muslims ever since. That's what it says. That's how I understood it. If somebody has some other Quran that they know about, bring it and let's have a look at it. As far as I know, there's only one Quran on the entire earth, and it's exactly like everyone else on the entire earth. So excuse me, but where do you get out of that Islam is terrorism? I see it real clear. Islam is against terrorism. In fact, if there is aggression, if there is oppression, if there is dhulm and fitna, if there is terrorism on this earth, it's Islam that declared the war against terrorism 1400 years ago, and it's called jihad sabilillah. This is not a subject that we're going to cover all the details in one short speech. But it is definitely a message that has to get out to every Muslim first, and then every other person on this planet. You may ask yourself, why did you say Muslims? Because my brothers and sisters in Islam, it's too often that I hear Muslims apologizing for Islam. Allah will never accept that. And the Muslim brothers and sisters who have died on the haqqa, la ilaha illallah, on the truth of Islam for 1400 years would not be very proud of you today to hear you apologize for something that has nothing wrong in it. Until we stand up for what real truth is and show people the beauty, the sweetness of the deen of Islam, the power that Allah gives to the true believers. Until we do this, we're not living up to it. The people can't see it. But before I end this little talk, I want to be sure that I balance the scale. I want to talk about the position of a non-Muslim. A person who is not Muslim, looking at what's being presented in the media today, has a right to be afraid. Because a non-Muslim doesn't really have the taqwa for Allah. And when you don't have taqwa for Allah, you're going to have taqwa for everything else that Allah created. Meaning, if you don't fear Allah, you'll fear what He created. So they're very much afraid. And they're responding to that fear. And until they can understand real Islam, they'll continue to do what they're doing. They see us, 1.5 billion people in the world, as a threat, as an enemy to them. Because we have not lived up to the message. We have not presented Islam to them correctly. And therefore they fear what they don't know and what they don't understand. And that's logical. People always fear what they don't understand. Who is going to carry this message to these people? Huh? Are we going to go to Madison Avenue? Are we going to go to Hollywood, California, and ask these great promoters of media to put together a package for us and put it on their news? I don't think so. In fact, I know so. The way that we're going to present this message is the way that it was presented 1400 years ago, by living the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by sacrificing our lives and our work and our money so that we can stand up and be real Muslims. So when they see the sweetness of the deen in us, they're going to say, I want to be like you. I want to be like you. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, ask yourself, is this a person that other people would like to become like? Because if the answer is no, then you're not representing Islam, are you? But if you can look in the mirror and say, this is somebody representing Islam, then get out there and let them see it in us. I'm not blaming them for doing what they are naturally going to do, but I'm blaming you and myself and every Muslim on this earth who has not presented this message correctly. Let us make a firm resolve from this point forward that when you leave out of this building tonight, that it's not the same person who walked in here, that your life is changed, that we are a better person, that we're going to abide by the rules, regulations, and commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and following the sunnah of His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let us make that resolve. Let us ask Allah to guide us first, and in so doing, help others to see the beautiful guidance of Islam. Ameen. I ask for the guidance of Allah. Ihdina siratul mustaqim. Ameen. I ask for the guidance for all of the people that Allah give hidayah, Muslims and non-Muslims. Ameen. And I ask that He give us the good of this life and the good of the next life and save us from the punishment of His fire. Ameen.
The value of money in the hereafter will be measured by its proper use in the present.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا شفاعة.
According to the glorious Quran, one of the best ways to use your money is to spend it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by spreading His message of Islam. Peace TV is a non-profit Islamic satellite television channel that is